Okay, so I'm going to throw in a little add-in video on this energy versus the accuracy conundrum. One of the things I'm finding as I'm working with these 24-inch barrels is I'm not getting as much resultant energy on the animal because I can't bring things up to velocity. What I'm going to explain is how that bites two ways. This is I've kind of set myself up for a self-fulfilling failure here, but I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna persevere. I'm gonna do fine. But for instance, in a lot of this thing is just stored back here, and this is one of the guns I use to illustrate how I use a chassis, and I glue it into the stock. I take this little bitty light stock, which is very weak through here because it's a BDL, and I put bottom metal in it from somebody, but I'm using the bottom metal to stiffen. You'll see those grooves back in there? These are from prior episodes where I used this piece of aluminum to stiffen this area in the interest of following these bench rest procedures I keep talking about. Take the barrel assembly and affix it to the stock assembly. This out here we just have to keep from wagging erratically, which is why I'm so fussy about one of my aluminum stocks that is too weak in the pistol grip. I'm so worried that it's going to start wagging. I've had that fight in the past. So the rules as they are now, this particular gun will be a 26 or a 28 inch barrel, so it'll make the accuracy parameters, and it will make, we're not breaking any rules with it. It's a lightweight hunting gun that will easily achieve the quarter minute. But one of the things that I hadn't considered when I entered this thing is, on paper, that 24-inch barrel, we're building light, but we're also cutting the energy factor clear down to 7 or 8 or 9,000 pounds instead of the 10, 12, 14,000 that the normal 50 BMG running 2700 throws at you. But as I'm working my way through this, and I was frankly not happy with the accuracy I got out of the screen door here earlier today, the accuracy started to come when I dropped down out of the performance range. BR is based on the fact that a BR gun is just like a hot rod. You always run a race car at the top end of it. You don't go out and buy a race car and run it at 2/3 throttle. There's no way you can tune any internal combustion engine except at the top of its ability range, whether it's a Hemi or a 6x47 Lapua 600 yard gun. So I've always tried to tune. Now here's the problem. I kind of confused myself here because I'm figuring as the energy drops because of the shorter barrel, well here, let me just put it in simple terms. The screen door with a 30-inch barrel on it, I'm pushing loads through it that would easily hit 2,700 feet per second and hit that 12,000 foot-pound paradigm. When I cut the barrel off to 24 inches, the power falls, but the power factor on the firing cycle doesn't. It's still the same load that would make 2,700 feet per second out of a 30-inch barrel. I'm using the same powder. So one of the things that I was just thinking about, I was headed up to the house daydreaming about this. How am I going to deal with these short barrels? I might have to go to a faster burning powder to bring back, but no, I feel like I'm getting all the recoil I can handle, all the recoil I can ride, all the recoil that the system can do. And another thing that happens every day on the inner tube is somebody comes on and goes, hey, I can't get Hodgdon. What would happen if I used reloader powder? Or right now you got these people saying I can't get any powder. So now there's new companies out there like Shooter's Choice or Checker Wolf or Russian powder or whatever. Well, to me, powder's powder. I don't give a rat. As long as it looks consistent, I don't even care about lots because I tune with velocity. I one time got talked into buying 10 pounds of RL17 because people told me it was way better than H4350. Well, I found out that I'm tempted to say that's just retarded, but I won't. I'll say I disagree with that. I find them to be identical. I can do the same thing with either one. They're like 133 and or H322 and Vitavori 130. They're so close to identical that they're both a little hot for heavy bullets, heavy being 68s and 70s as opposed to 60s and 63s. 65 it probably crosses over. But I laugh at, I know the PPC paradigm. The difference between 130 and 135 or H322 or old Thunderbird or T or something is so minute. And yet it's not uncommon for somebody to go up on the line and shoot groups that frankly look like that bad group that I shot here in the last episode. And you got to tighten them back up. So but it struck me as I'm going, oh, powders, try this. We're out on new territory here, these short barrels. And I realized, hey, one thing, the gun is still recoiling just as hard as the big gun would. It's still recoiling like it was making 12,000 pounds. All that happens is it ramps up and shakes and jumps and goes, and then you cut the barrel off so the bullet leaves and you run out of acceleration. So it doesn't accelerate for as long, but for the impulse that affects me, which is riding the bags, which is getting the gun to shoot, it hits like a hammer. It hits harder than the big 30-inch, 30-pound gun by far. Now, this is not some way of whining and saying I bit off more than I can chew by going to 15 pounds, but it just struck me that I'm shooting a load that would generate 12 to 14,000 pounds if the barrel were only 6 inches longer. So I cut 6 inches off the barrel. I'm still getting all the same reactions down on this end. All the same flexes and pounding and going on with the stock. So that's really just to illustrate why I am so adamant that I believe these aluminum stocks built out like a car leaf spring with heavy support in the middle and fading both ways are the only way it can be done. As I was leaving off the last video, I actually got cut short. I was mentioning is how I really think at this point, I've only fired the screen door off the sled, and I fired the Noreen in the big beast stock a few times because I cut a rocket-shaped chamber in it. I've never shot it at a target because I didn't even have a proper scope on it. I had to build a riser for that too because when I ran the numbers, I realized that those 3 little screws holding that pick rail onto the Noreen, back when it was a 34-pound gun, they were fine. Now that I've cut it down to half that, no, not half, it's still 20, it's not that. But anyway, I decided to go affix the scope base better. It has machined screws that fit very tightly, but I went ahead and did some pinning in it because when that big gun underneath starts shaking around and you got a 3 or 4 pound scope up there doing its thing, those 3 little screws holding it down get really wimpy. And when I started putting this is my state-of-the-art, lightweight, BR quality, no, it's not either. This is the one with Genesis on it. No. This has got the Genesis already has a riser. No, where I was going for was when I had to build this one here, where I'm building this riser block that I've got right here has got 38 MOA built into it, and it's affixed hopefully permanently to the area of the stock that is most beefy, that I keep calling ugly. But really what I did here goes back to the fact that that initial recoil impulse is the same as if I were putting 15,000 pounds downrange. For the time that thing's in there and the time it's flexing and ripping, that last 6 inches out there adds some velocity, a couple hundred feet of velocity. But with the light gun and even 20, the equivalent of, when I'm getting 2,400 feet per second out of this, I'm shooting a load that in a little longer barrel would be 2,700 feet per second out of a lighted platform. So I'm not using that except to say in real time while it's fresh on my mind and I'm passing it on to be fresh on your mind. The shaking and the vibration that goes on in the gun is just as big and as bad as it would be in a 14,000 pound setup. I say that because it produces 14,000 pounds-feet of energy due to the 750 grain bullet traveling at the velocity of 2,700 feet per second. I mean, it has in it 7 tons of energy that it then expends on the animal that you hit or don't hit, or the mountainside that you bounce off of. So it's just important to remember that now that I'm out of the testing stage and I'm up to the, okay, now how do I ride the lightning here? How do I get these things to... I'm walking out today to go up and collate these videos, and I'm thinking as I'm walking up, the gun did what it was supposed to do. I think the gun is sound. Now how do I get myself sound? How do I get myself? I can't completely free recoil it because the gun goes all different directions. So I'm kind of sharing with you some of the thoughts that are going through my head, because we will get these guns to shoot the way we want them to. That's what I do. It's going to happen. But it's kind of fun to go through the trials and tribulations of doing it. I refer to a show I watched years ago, and I still love these guys, Freiberger and his crowd down there at Hot Rod, and the show Roadkill, in which all they do is go buy a junkyard dog of a car, and then they go fix the problems and they turn it into something, and they chronicle. I love this stuff. As they're building various things, just go watch the show. Just go watch Roadkill. I'm just unsolicited throwing out the fact that Roadkill is great. And it's like what I'm doing right here, only with cars. And they're doing it on the cheap. Basically, I'm following the Roadkill rules here. I'm trying to take found stuff or relatively rational stuff as opposed to, hey, I'm going to go jump on the gravy train with 50 BMG and spend 10 or 12 grand to shoot 1 inch. No, I'm going to spend way less than that. Already am. And so far today I've proven that I can get the gun to do some of the things. Now I need to be able to get me to do some of the things. So I'm going to have to spend some time on something that I haven't spent time on for a long time. I'm going to have to spend some time on coming up with a bag assembly that will steer and resist the forces. Frankly, I'm so spoiled by things like a Jim Borden built 6 PPC that will shoot off the back of a freaking dead horse that I haven't given enough thought to bags lately. And teetering up on that loose gob of sand today, and the way this thing leaps around taught me that I might have to spend the next few days building some rests to contain bags in the back stout enough to handle that. Because numerically, the guns are built in such a way that they should be able to stay together through the power cycle. At this point, I'm convinced. And it's going to be really fun to move into the better ones. As I said, this was the screen door. But anyway, I just want to throw that out there, that remember, even though the thing I shot today was only producing 22 and 2,400 feet per second, that was a barrel length thing. It wasn't because I threw all the power. I was still shooting powerful loads in it. They were just still accelerating, and I chopped off the racetrack. So all of the things that affected the firing cycle while the bullet was in the barrel, because accuracy is about follow through. It all happens after you pull the trigger. If you're a competitive archer, now there's a big difference between guys that shoot bows and hunters and archers and competitive archers and winning competitive archers. A winning competitive archer will show you a form. They can be talking like this and they get up and all of a sudden the world stops. They freeze their whole world and then twitch their back or pull their trigger or whatever, and they do not move until that arrow thumps, that sound is back, you hear the thump, then life continues. Well, guns are the same way. The triggers on these things are atrocious. I didn't think they were atrocious, so I went to fire them off the bags. I'm used to 2 ounce and a half, ounce and a quarter to ounce and a half to 2 ounce on the high end. And I hate the fact that a certain Italian-made trigger feels like I'm pulling, even though it's smooth and even though it's an ounce and a half, and even though it's got roller bearings in it, and I feel like I have to wrap up and take 2 steps backwards to get the gun to fire. I didn't realize how this is kind of a puke out Al's problems thing, because I didn't realize how wrapped up I was in triggers either until I went to shoot this thing today. And I went, okay, between the triggers and the bags, I honestly think the gun's doing okay. So we're going to go ahead and work on some bags. We'll probably go through that trigger. But before that, I think we're going to move on to a couple of other guns. Shoot some more. See if we can come up with something better than we did today. So, thanks for listening, guys. Enjoy.